Philadelphia's Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
All right, it's Gary Arnell and my friend Rich Zeoli, Arnell and Zeoli right now until 10 o'clock.
Don't do that.
Then Zeoli and Arnell.
Please don't call me your friend.
All right, you're not my friend.
I'm your business associate.
All right, you're my business associate.
Thank you.
And student. All right.
Listen, a lot of people, we said it earlier that the African Americans are all locked down for Barack Obama.
Yes.
Well, that's not necessarily true. And our next guest, Gary, is proof positive of that because he's the author of a book called Jumping the Aisle, How I Became a Black Republican in the Age of Obama. And this guy was I'd say, very active Democrat because he worked in the Clinton White House, and he was also involved with the NCAACP, Dr. Oliver McGee, and he was an advisor to President Bill Clinton. You would say he was a moderate Democrat. And now he's firmly behind Mitt Romney, so much so that he wrote a book called Jumping the Aisle. And we're happy to have him on here with Gary Arnell and his show, and Rich Zeoli, who I've talked to before. Dr. McGee, welcome, sir, to Talk Radio 1210.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Hello, Gary, and hi, Rick. How are you?
Dr. McGee, I'm thrilled to have you here. And the first question that comes to my mind, I know Rich is more familiar with the book and everything, is what were the incremental steps along the way that brought you from where you were on one side of the political aisle to the transformational process of supporting the Republicans as an African American? What were the building factors here, Dr. McGee?
Well, back in 2008, I think it was generally perceived when we looked at the election cycle that this was time for Hillary. It was Hillary's turn. She was paid her dues in the Democratic Party, and I think the party felt that they owed this to Hillary. So the large part of that side of the electorate was really pushing to make her the first woman president of the United States. And naturally, since I served in the Clinton administration, you remember those who brung you, so I was helping the Clinton team push that forward. The emergence of the age of Obama was really a surprise, and sometimes election cycles produce that. And when he emerged and we were trying to find out where this was going, he was quickly rising to be a media darling. That kind of threw the Clinton campaign off its foot. But generally what people thought as they were trying to get to that primary decision, boy, did this ticket look great together. The first black president, the first woman vice president, or the first woman president and the first black vice president. That was testing the value of diversity in the White House, for which I think we can see that's being done on several administrations, from Reagan on to Nixon did this, as well as Clinton and Bush as well, testing the value of diversity in the White House. So when you're trying to take that to the two top parts of the ticket, I was really gratified by that. When the ticket couldn't come together, some of us who were really loyal on the Clinton camp, we didn't know where to go, so we just went offshore. And so oftentimes when I saw where the party was going, and it was going too far to the extreme left, when the country is really center-right, it always has been, always will be, I always say that when my party left, I turned right, and that's the title of the first chapter of my book.
And so you would say, Dr. McGee, that the Democratic Party is not a center party?
I think that what we've seen in the last 4 years, and I think this is what people are looking at as they're going to this decision tomorrow, is the 4 years has been a test of the principles of the far left. In the first 2 years, they had quite a bit of control. And then they're seeing what would you do in the first 2 years of your presidency. You see the outcomes come in the second 2 years, or the final 2 years of the presidency, when you're trying to go for a re-election or see what the outcomes are. We're seeing what those principles are. So this is right now a defense of principles, either on the far left or even or on the middle left, versus the moderate right, and even on the far right.
Now, let me go ahead. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
And we're just seeing that debate take place right now. We're seeing that challenge.
Well, let me ask you this. You just said we're talking to Dr. Oliver McGee. Jumping the Aisle is the book. Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. It's Gary Arnell, Rich Zeoli. So you say, from what I'm getting out of this, you left the Democrats because at that particular point during that campaign, the primary season, you were envisioning that they were starting to move out of the center, maybe more to the left, more progressive. How do you react now that you've jumped ship to support the Republicans since the 2010 midterms and the Tea Party and what some would refer to as the extreme right of the party, which was ever present during the primary campaign. How does that make you feel about the party that you are now affiliated with, as the Democrats did back then?
I firmly believe that when you take a look at the choice in Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, you're seeing an excellent 5-point plan. And I think it is not only an economic plan, but it's a national security plan. Supply and growth are the details of the Romney plan. It's about the simple concepts of prices on goods and incomes from jobs. And when we look at the plan in great detail, it really says that when we look at jobs and growth, that's tied to energy independence in gas and oil and coal exploration. If voters walk into the voting booth tomorrow and find the gas prices as they are, way above $3.50 a gallon, jobless rate as it is, that I think is announced at 7.9%, and voters can find 2 or 3 people in their lives that are feeling the pinch inside their pocketbooks and wallets, Romney Ryan wins in a landslide. Second,
it's interesting you say, and let me just jump in 1 second talking about gas prices. Yeah. With the idea of in Pennsylvania, which is a battleground state, we've been talking about Pennsylvania tonight, Dr. McGee, and the war on coal is one of those things. You remember Barack Obama early on in his term said, you can have coal, but we're just going to put so many regulations. We're going to put you out of business. And now you've got a lot of people in Pennsylvania who are fired up over this. Gas prices are high. Keystone Pipeline, all that sort of plays into that theory of what you're saying.
Yeah, because if we don't get into energy independence, we can't create the necessary replacement of the 20 million jobs lost and build the economic growth from 1.5% to a comfortable historic 2% and even higher to 3 and 4% that we need.
So then
we need to grow the economy at 4% to just make up what we've lost in growth in the last 4 years.
Dr. McGee, let me ask you then to answer this, the critics of the Romney proposals as far as energy. First of all, you got the Obama administration out there saying we're producing at bigger levels than we did under the Bush administration, and they're saying that we need to concentrate on both the fossil fuels and the renewables, and that Mitt Romney does not have any kind of great interest in the renewables, and that if we truly want to get to energy independence, you have to have the morphing and a synergism between both of those ideologies, and that he would be weighted in one capacity much more so than the other. So how do you respond to that, Dr. McGee?
Well, a good point in the Romney plan is, like I say in my book on getting to 2076, America's Tercentennial. It's the last chapter of my book, Jumping the Aisle, How I Became a Black Republican in the Age of Obama. And that's about developing the skills needed in science and technology to be able to look at those renewables. And that rests on school choice and families over unions for teachers. Race to the top. Race to the top, race to the bottom, no child left behind slogans, don't pull kids forward in science and technology, engineering and mathematics, and the renewed workforce needed for the time to reach America.
I gotta jump in here, Dr. McGee, and say, and it's interesting because your book is called "How I Became a Black Republican in the Age of Obama." School choice is one of those issues that Democrats nationally are terrified of. They won't touch. Barack Obama won't touch it. And I think, when Mitt Romney says, I want to give the ability for all children to have a great education, he'll do a lot more to help reach out to the kids in Camden and Philadelphia and give them a hopeful future than Barack Obama will, because Barack Obama's terrified of the teachers union, like all Democrats seem to be for the most part on the national level.
Yes, because I would say the union process in teaching is really sort of protecting the status quo. When you're talking about renewable energies and other types of advanced technologies, which I like to call infotech, biotech, wireless tech, microtech, nanotech, cognotech, elder tech, the 7 grand challenge problems that we need to look at, you need to have school choice and having kids involved in science and technology and the wonders of engineering and mathematics to be able to pull that all off. And so we have to start giving parents get them involved in the PTA, in that choice, so that we can then raise the sights and pull kids forward in the STEM field so that we can be able to develop this new technology.
Dr. Oliver McGee, we're way over. Just one final question for you. The book, again, Jumping the Aisle, which you've done as an African-American. Why is it that there is such a preponderance of support among the African-American community today for Barack Obama? Does pigmentation, does race have something to do with it, or is it strictly based on political philosophy and ideology? I mean, you're talking support that is unheard of in most demographic constituencies, approaching 90%. Just give me your thought on that.
We're having support in the African community for Barack Obama, so that in the African American community, so that there is a respect to history. The African American community has a profound respect to history. That's the first part of my book, and that's what 2008 election was about, making historical inroads on what the African American community saw as a civil rights issue, pushing that envelope and electing the first black president. I think you're going to find that this time the African American vote is going to be slightly softer, because they're going to be looking at also, now that we've made that inroads, what have we done? With poverty so high, with jobless rates so high in the African American community, with school choice and necessities for that, I think you're going to find a much more thoughtful voter going into the booth. And more importantly, one of the plans of Romney is to save Main Street, when 75% of the economic growth comes from small businesses, and African Americans, as well as all Americans, are trying to establish small businesses, raising taxes on the areas of stress income and increase regulatory costs of Obamacare. We don't want small businesses going to a bank to get a loan to pay for health care.
Dr. McGee, got to go because of the clock, but I think you are right on when you talk about, and Rich concurs with this as well, school choice, unemployment in the minority community, double-digit school choice, the allegiance to the teachers unions from the Obama administration, not giving the parents the right to pick what they think would be the best education for their kids. I think that's enlightening, and I think that more and more people are starting to think about that. Dr. Oliver McGee, the book Jumping the Aisle. Sir, thanks for being here with myself and Rich.
Thank you so much. I love CBS Philly Radio.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Oliver McGee. Straight ahead, it's Arnell and Zioli.